Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. My name is Martin Loffers. I'm the Chief Trend Watcher of Supply Chain Media. I'm also the Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Movement, a quarterly magazine, but also a bi-weekly newsletter and a website. And you might also know me as the architect of the SCM IT Supply Map Europe. So we have a great 1 hour live webinar this afternoon. So we talk about supply chain learning and how it will change in the next 5 to 10 years, already changing, with the use of machine learning and ChatGPT. So with me, I have two experts. So you see me on the left, and in the middle you see Amin Kaboli. He's both lecturer at EPFL, that's a technical university in Lausanne, but he's also involved in a Lagrange.AI startup. Maybe you can say something about it, Amin?
Thank you. Glad to be here. Teaching at EPFL, basically the main three courses around supply chain and AI and so on, they're related. And the other one is at the same time, as an engineer and practitioner, I'm putting the other time that we developed some codes and algorithm and cool stuff to help companies for their cost saving, for their CO2 emission reduction, plus operational efficiencies. We can talk a bit more, but I'm going to showcase some part of the thing that we developed with Gen AI. Pass it to you.
Yeah. We will show some really cool stuff about the digital twin and how to use it also for educational purposes. And last but not least, Mudassir Ahmed, also known as the Scmdojo, but that's the brand name. So Mudassir, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me, Martin. How are you?
I'm fine. Before we kick off, about the topic at hand, I will let you know that this webinar will be recorded and the PDF of the slides will be made available within 48 hours. So the audience is on mute, but you have two ways to interact with us. So there are two ways. So first, you can use the chat function on the right-hand side. And everybody can see these questions and everybody can answer these questions. Basically, the first question is, is this presentation recorded? Yes, it is. So, but there is also a Q&A functionality with the text cloud on the right. I will track this functionality with this question. So if you have a question to the three of us or one of us, please use the Q&A functionality, and I will make sure that this question will be answered right away if it's in line of the conversation we will be having. So that's one thing. There will be a Q&A at the end, just 5 minutes before the hour. And if you still have questions, there's a 30 minutes after talk in the lounge. So we go to this virtual lounge 30 minutes afterwards. We will be there. We'll be sitting at table 1. So basically, you can sit down with us, and then you can have a direct conversation about whatever you want, but hopefully about supply chain learning. All right. As of this moment, I will put off the camera, and also Amin and Mudassir will do the same. So because of bandwidth, but also you can enlarge your screen. So basically, you can have a better view on the presentation. So Mudassir, you can put off your camera, and then we know we are there. We know we're live. All right. So first, I'm going to talk briefly about what's happening in the world. I don't go through the whole slide. We all know, COVID happening, lockdowns, and because of lockdowns, a boost in e-learning in Zoom, and you name it. And some other consequences. War in Ukraine has a lot of effect. Sustainability has a lot of effect. And all of this are leading to boo whips, and we'll talk about it later. And Amin will show boo whips real life in a digital twin and how to use it for educational purposes. But my point here is, AI is very good in analyzing correlations, but AI computers are not good enough, are not well enough equipped to get causality. So basically, cause and effect, it's very hard to detect by computers. That's a human thing. So basically, humans are good in making this, like in front of you, creating this cause and effect overviews. Maybe you can train computers later on, but this is the point I would like to make. What is your reflection on this? Amin, are computers good at creating this kind of visualizations and cause and effects?
Cause and effect is still going on, not yet, but then we visualization, yeah. Well, Midjourney and some other Dolly too, and some others, they can create fantastic graphics, and every day they get better and better, in my view.
Yeah, but still, to my point, computers correlations, humans causality, and looking at this slide, bullwhips, that's a matter of causality. Next,
Indeed.
what we have seen in the last few years is the rise of distant learning, and you see on the left hand side, the Facebook and the Netflix and the YouTubes, the hockey sticks going up since 2020 March April. The hockey sticks went up, and on the right hand side you see it in similar way, also incredible increase of Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and also platforms like this, AirMeet. So that's what we have seen in the last few years. On the other hand, we also experience a Zoom fatigue. That people are a bit tired of having this online meetings as such. Then again, I'm doing these webinars for this is probably almost the 100th webinar I've been doing since May 2020. Webinars are still going on, and considering the huge amount of registrants of this particular webinar, I still think that webinars are here to stay. So that's my point. Mudassar, what is your reflection on Zoom fatigue and webinar fatigue?
Yeah, I think in COVID it was imperative, right? There was no way to happen it, and we have seen, as I think we talk about later, the more people are consuming more video content, right? Coming to Zoom footing, yes, it's been call it Zoom or Teams. We are on the call. That's the only way to correct. But now people wants to be more personal. I mean, I'm right now sitting in Jeddah, right, and on a conference. All of those conferences was happening it virtually, and actually, I mean, because you have asked me, I've agreed to today. A lot of people, if anybody asks me to do a virtual webinar, I actually say no because I'm bored of this, honestly speaking. Yeah, I'm sitting. I was very surprised to see in Jeddah there was a big hall and there was 100+ people. So people are coming back to seeing each other, shaking hands, personal introductions. So I think that's coming back. That's nice to see. Yeah, webinar, value webinar. Like you, I do webinars myself. I don't know about the results you have seen. What I've seen in last 6 months, that the Scmdojo webinar, what we used to do, the attendance has gone down almost half, right?
Yeah.
So people are, I don't think so, they want to come back, come and join the webinar. They're still happy to, consume video content when and they have a time. But webinars, what I've seen is reducing the engagement.
A particular thing, I have done twice a webinar about ChatGPT and GPT-4 for supply chain. Huge amount of registrants. How is ChatGPT changing supply chain planning? 1,600 registrants. Incredible from all over the world. And I think that we have 2,000 or 3,000 people rewatching this webinar in May. I think it was on YouTube. 3,000, and for supply chain purposes, that's huge. And next thing, this is quite interesting. This is This is from a recent article by McKinsey, and they did a survey among a lot of students, and basically, what is the satisfaction of online learning? And basically, this graph is stating it varies across countries. The light blue is very likely to recommend it to others, and the darker blue is unlikely. So from left to right, you see Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, very positive about online learning. When you look in the middle, you see Europe. You see less enthusiastic about online learning. Look at Spain, Italy, Germany, and especially France. They are not happy with online learning, and we'll talk about later. On the right-hand side, you see Saudi Arabia, very high, and then, India and China, it's kind of neutral. So I'm curious to hear from your side, Mudassar, what do you think about this graph? What is your explanation about the high likelihood of Saudi Arabia liking online learning compared to China and India?
Yeah, I think two reasons. If you think about Saudi, if you want to take an example, they have really opened up in last 3-4 years. There is a huge vibe of modernization and almost like a obsession with digitalization, right? They're consuming more and more online content. If you think about it, that if you really want to go big in Saudi Arabia, you don't use LinkedIn or you Facebook. You actually use Twitter, right? That's, I think, one is the general vibe going on in Saudi. The second thing is, in Saudi government have now incentivized people to whatever they're going to learn, and if they want to claim the money back, they can claim it from the government. So what's actually happening is the Saudi young people, Gen Zs, and on and millennials, they have an incentive to go and learn as much as possible. And okay, they want to learn from the best. Okay, where is the best people? The best people are, let's call it, European foreigner trainers, or American, who is available teaching online, doing online courses, right? So it's incentivized by government. There is a vibe and the trend of digitalization, online learning. They can access to a lot of international good content. I mean, really, I mean, today a lot of people have stopped me saying, "Oh, we follow your content, we like watch your YouTube videos," and I was not expecting in Saudi people to tell me this. So I think this is what contributing. But what is interesting in this graph, if you see the Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, and Saudi, so you see these countries are really on the very likely score of consuming. It's because of the same reason. So what's happening in Mexico, again, because the inshoring in America is saying, yeah, we don't want to work with China, and let's bring stuff from Mexico. I was in May. In May, I was in a conference in Cancun, and it was very clear. The supply chain logistics is growing because the manufacturing is growing. Why? Because they know they're going to ship a lot of stuff to America, and they have to improve the supply chain. Okay, but where they're going to learn where they're going to learn better supply chain is they're going to learn from the people who are teaching online, who are experts in their industry, and therefore they were consuming a lot of online content. So that is my explanation when I see this graph.
Yeah, and when I look at it from a European perspective, I think that the supply chain education in Italy, in Germany, and also in France is very good. Pity, they haven't surveyed Switzerland or the Netherlands. So that's my point on this. The less likelihood, because we already have good education. And look at China; they have good supply chain education, and even India is on a high level. What surprised me surprised me on one hand about US, and it's a mixed bag. Of course, a lot of these online tools are US based, English, and maybe that's also why UK is scoring high, and maybe France, they are still sticking to their French language, maybe to some extent. So that's my take. So I think that the traditional leading countries on education, are less likely to recommend it, whereas the new ones, the upcoming ones, are playing catch up. I mean, something to your reflection before we go to your part.
I mean, I've seen this report. It's an interesting report about undergrad and grad students. I mean, it might be a bit different on the behavior of, for example, though this population, they are important, might be a bit different on the executive level and so on. But however, I mean, it's an average behavior of the countries. And a little bit, I would put the point like the countries that are more, let's say, social, and social life is going on. We can see there's a correlation that they are okay with the online, and then in the countries that, for example, for us, that it's not, we prefer to socialize around the activities as well. It's a bit this way that I see. So I cannot, to be honest, from my side, I cannot say it is very highly conclusive for supply chain, which is a very narrow field, and this is for undergrad and grad. But I do agree with many of the points and caveats that you both shared.
Maybe I mean, you can explain what's happening in the world, and you have some great examples here, from how this is progressing.
Sure. Well, we can see let me just share my video as well. We can see, like, from stage to stream, it just happened probably less than 100 and 120 years. And it is not like we are just in front of Netflix and we're chilling and having our popcorn or our meal, but then we have a right balance of each of that, but depends on the personality again. And if they are on the millennial, boomer, or they are Gen Z. So it's a bit different. If we go for the next slide, similar story holds for learning. And in a learning, let's say, journey and evolution, if we can go to slide 7, here, for example, we can see the classroom, and then after COVID was a big change, and then we went for online classes. We've been forced basically to keep our distances and to stay at home. And then we've seen like out of that some coolest stuff happen. Of course, Zoom fatigue, all of the meetings or in team fatigues. But then at the same time, the Oppenheimer moment was November 2022, when ChatGPT came out, and of course this knowledge was there, and Brad was there from 2017 and launch of one or two ChatGPT version 1, 2, and so on. But then these trends came up, and then seeing like, oh, it's like a talking parrot, assemble things. But later we checked, for example, question on ChatGPT, we've seen like, oh, you're answering even better than us who are educating in universities for graduate students or for executives and so on, concise, and we can ask like, give me 2 or 3 sentences and so on. Now, there might be a question that, okay, shall we go just for AI-powered learning or so on? Again, as you rightfully showed, this is in the different regions, probably different preferences or different portfolios could be used, but combination of all of that, in my point of view, similar to, for example, for streaming, we are going for combination of Netflix and theater evening with our friends and loved ones, or going to cinema, for example. So if we can go for the next slide, there are pros and cons for each of them. And what is very important in my view is that we consider this dealing with, for example, in classroom with both graduate students, executives, and so on, or going for online classes, shifting that during COVID. Plus, in the next slide, I will show you the online master's class as well that we ran recently, and there were some insights in it. Or developing some tools that are already in test and use and implementation for some companies with AI-powered tool. What we are seeing is it all depends where you stand, if you want to have something specific or not. So you have to balance and check. And we listed some points here: personalized learning, learning experience, real-time feedback, accessibility, and dealing with bias and inequality, or privacy and security. So if you see there are some part that AI could beat the normal classroom and online classes, but I again highly recommend to have a right balance between all of that and seeing what fits the best for your talent. If you are an educator, or if you are in a company, for example, helping to onboard and upskill the talent in your company. If
Yeah.
Modester and Martin, you have any comment here, I would be
Yeah,
happy
yeah. I
to.
was wondering, I think that with the bias and inequality, I was wondering, is online classes less equipped according with bias and inequality? I think, with broadcasting, it's, quite neutral. So maybe Mudasir, what was your take? Is bias and inequality using ChatGPT and the like less, convenient when you do online classes?
I think online classes is also convenient, but it's the same with Zoom fatigue, right? This attention span gets smaller and smaller, right, over the period of time. Because I've done, 2 hours classes, I've done half an hour classes. It's very clear to engage even more than 10 people in online class. It's difficult. So rather, what I've also seen being a student and a teacher, that people prefer more within even online. There's two things, right? You are teaching virtually live, or you are on demand. On means you already have pre-recorded content, which we have done at Scmdojo, and people are consuming it as and when need. So I believe the on-demand online learning have a better future than the virtual online classes. That's in my view, right? The one has a better future, the other, it doesn't mean both are dead. Classroom, which is disappointing for me, because until last year I was teaching into the University of Harriet Watt, a master's course in supply chain strategy, and I've clearly noticed that student doesn't want to come into the class. It's just disappointing, right? They're still now getting almost used to. But I want to make a point on AI learning more so than anything. ChatGPT is very much still Q&A, very much procedural answer, right? They give you very step by step answers and procedural answer. The beauty of online or a teacher teaching is more about storytelling, is experience sharing. So unless AI would get to the point that it almost behaves like a teacher who's basically doing sharing the experiences, and in a storytelling style, it will not be as good as classroom training, or even learning from an expert, right? And when it will happen, I'm sure it will happen at some point, but when it will happen, I don't know.
Maybe, I mean, you could tell us about what you've been doing on more advanced ways of teaching and using tools, additional tools?
Sure. One thing that is there is that the main problem that I mean, for offering any solution or tool to our fellow supply chain professionals, is the main important thing is understanding what is the element of value and what is their need. And the need is for effective real-time learning and decision making. I want to go back again to the first slide that you were mentioning. So, look, the war is unprecedented change and instability and uncertainties going on. And supply chains are getting more and more complex. Before we were talking, and before not even like 3, 5, 6 years ago, we were talking about efficiency, and then it's efficiency plus agility plus resiliency and sustainability. It's not, what I'm saying is not like sustainability just came up. No, it was a moral mandate, but we have more and more regulation coming up. And considering economic situation, considering technology changes, and considering net zero 2030 or net zero 2050, and all of the sustainability, let's say, mandates and moral, let's say, pressure that we have, there are things there. So any solution comes out should cover, in my point of view, it should cover these three main points. Help supply chain executives or professionals for automated data integration. We are talking about control, let's say, control tower, but then the main point is to what extent? We are talking about 70 about information sharing, but from what end to what end? That's the important thing. So what I'm talking is the clear, transparent data transparency and clear data supply chain visibility. Number two is advanced analytics that supply chain executives, they need to have. Look, there is a war in talent, and even one of my colleagues and friends, he's calling it hunt for talent. So there are very limited, unfortunately, supply chain experts coming out, and then there is a huge, let's say, rush for all of them to have them with a data science background or AI background and so on. And on top, we need to have, if we put them all together, we need to have like technology helping, and this is how I see it, technology helping, because the element of speed and a scale should be in place in such a world, in such an uncertain environment. So this is the thing that I'm thinking, and some of the friends who are, we are sharing the thoughts and we are developing in Lagrange, we put our thoughts together because the main point is ease of use and having an integrated view. So we went for developing a tool in a way that executives, either they can have this control tower, they can have advanced analytics, or they can ask the question on the go. For example, Stefan was in a meeting, in a board meeting, some people, they were talking about, let's say, demand fluctuation and about bubble effect. What is the difference between these two? This sounds like a bit complicated. For some people, not. For us being educated, not. But for some people, yes. So the question, he's asking, having a tool, asking on the spot the question rather than Googling it. And then the question comes in a way that bubble effect happens along the chain. So the other thing is, what about my, let's say, bubble effect in my chain? And then if the property data is imported and so on, we go for the number 1 and 2. So the thing is, it's going to be properly monitored and shown. The other point is, what should I do? It's assisting in the decision making, helping. Like, how can I do that? How can I cut this? How can I tame the bubble effect or reduce the fluctuation? And then the system recommends that these are the main points and so on. So we can go faster and faster, and we can develop more. And again, it depends to what level the company would like to involve and would like to develop or train or have a tool beside the monitoring, the technical point, automated data integration, which is a killing point. 70% of supply chain they're facing with this. And second point is having advanced analytics. Not everybody knows, or specifically in supply chain, many people, they are rotated to this role. They are not elevated to this role, or they came up to this role or taking steps. There are some companies lucky to have the experts. Some other people, they are just having them rotated from the other, let's say, roles. So now, this implementation is not without risk. So we need to be cautious, and we need to really consider all of that. There's a positive side, and there's the other part that we have to have a close look on that. One of them is potential risk and challenges, such as data privacy and security, or reliability and dependency on the tool that we have. And if they are hallucinating or they're accurate in a 5.9 level, 99.999 level. So that's very important for the, let's say, tool makers, or if you want to have in-house development, that's a very important thing to have it. And these are the things that absolutely we have an eye and consider. The other point is, as we mentioned earlier or discussed, and Martin highlighted, it is human plus technology, human plus machine. It's not in a way that we know horse is out of the barn, but it's not in a way that we don't put any guardrail. It is very important to keep it intact and consider that there is a learning curve. This tool, on a positive side, can help, or other tools this way that my fellow speakers are going to share, can help to flatten the organizational learning curve. But from the other side, you need to have a clear vision. The same as AI strategy or data strategy, you need to have a proper learning strategy for your organization to know what is happening. And the other part is about, let's say, ethical part of AI, which is matter of fairness, matter of putting ethical guardrails, prioritizing the transparency, and so on. For example, you implement it for different regions, and probably answers are a bit different because of the regions or users or type of use or type of question. Shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. So these are the points that I link it to the discussion that we had on the table that I mapped about bias and equality, that this needs to be checked, this needs to be tested, and then scale, not just, and there's a reason for this. For example, ChatGPT, you can use even the paid version 2021. You're not going to go more than this. Or GPT-5, I'm not sure, but I believe there are some development there, but it's not released. These are the tools that should be implemented with care and caution, and absolutely people, they should know what they are doing. So I pass it to you, Melissa and Martin.
Yeah, thanks. It's good to see, what the digital twin, what you have been doing. I mean, you can put off your camera for bandwidth reasons, and also
sure,
people can enlarge the screen. So, last year in May, McKinsey was writing about business ecosystems, and a month later, Gartner was writing about supply chain ecosystem. At the same time, I Googled for pictures for visualization and didn't find any good picture out of it. So basically, I created this ecosystem later on last year. So, to have visualization, what it's all about. So I will show you a short video, and it's also part of the education to explain all this. Hold on, you are. So in this short video, very short video, it explains how supply chains are evolving.
Over the past few years, the word ecosystem has repeatedly cropped up in a business and supply chain context. The traditional supply chain was linear. Products went from ingredient suppliers to factories to distribution centers or wholesale companies to retail storerooms and then onto the shelves of the supermarkets, where consumers bought the groceries and took them back home. And now the supply chain increasingly ends directly at the consumer's front door. Brand manufacturers are coming under increasing pressure from various stakeholders, like banks and investors, social media, government, and NGOs, to operate more sustainably. Traditional linear supply chains have evolved into intricate networks of companies working in partnership with varying flows of goods. Information from sales and data providers like Nielsen and, of course, capital. The COVID-19 pandemic has dramatically altered the worldwide retail and consumer packaged goods market, with dark stores and flash delivery to different types of consumers. With the world now emerging from lockdown, the household products market has not only reached a tipping point, but also the point of no return. Consumers who experimented with buying such goods online have become accustomed to the newfound convenience from e-commerce companies like Amazon and to-go shops. Just as in the natural world, the supply chain ecosystems must become increasingly circular in the context of sustainability, with the help of recycling companies, supplying chemical companies, and other suppliers of rubber, plastics, and packaging. In view of the need to use more organic raw materials, recycle more packaging, and use less water and more renewable energy, the supply chain ecosystem for household products and other consumer goods is changing rapidly. And all the participants in that ecosystem will need to adapt, digitalize, and collaborate.
So, like this video is saying, and I'll now check to get back to my presentation. How do we get there? So, I developed this video for educational purposes, so that people can explain how the world has been evolving, and so that everybody can understand. We go from a linear supply chain to a circular ecosystem with all kind of companies involved, and this is an example of a video. But Mudassir, you also have created a lot of video. Maybe you can tell us why you created all the videos and what has been changing.
Yeah, I think just to lead to the let me answer your question first. When I started doing content marketing, or let's say started creating content as a blogger after 2019, and there was a trend that video gonna rank more on most of the social platforms. LinkedIn launched the video in native video. YouTube was there anyway, so is Facebook. So that was a real motivation to get the content out. And when COVID happens, this is where I think, as you've shown earlier, that people are consuming more and more video content, right? And it's from the learning perspective, also it has a high retention rate. When we start creating videos, and then you understand the importance, but then the question is, what video you should create? Because the only thing we know is supply chain, and we want to. That's our motto at Scmdojo. We want to help supply chain thrive. So when it comes to learning and creating a future supply chain professional, which as Dr. Amin talked about earlier, there is a war of talent, and especially in the Western or Europe in general, it's hard to find people or young people to work in supply chain, especially with the skills of data science, so on and so forth. So whatever we do at SCM, this is our high level mission. So if you see any legacy supply chain knowledge content, let me name few because everybody knows anyway, which is SCM, previously Apex, or MSIPs, or University Masters Program. So I have studied about 72 universities and supply chain masters program, and I want to see what they're teaching. What was really, what I did was on the left hand I've got all the masters program, and then all the universities on the x-axis, and all the courses on the y-axis. What was surprise to me is they're all of these 72 master program, at maximum they were teaching 32 courses. Really, it was almost like in some universities copy paste of the somebody else curriculum, right? And if you see the CSCP is the same, and MSIPs is the same. It's all teaching about supply chain competencies. But now, me being a supply chain guy who worked for Eaton 12 years or Bridgestone, so I'm a hands-on supply chain person. I just realized when you actually try to hire somebody, and the people who actually do better in supply chain, competencies are given. You need to know negotiation, contract management, how to run MRP, inventory management, S&OP process. This is all technical stuff. You need to know this anyway. Without that, you can't be a supply chain professional. But what differentiates a good supply chain professional from, let's call it ordinary one, is the bottom two column. That they have to have a good people skills. They know how to navigate within the organization, how to network with people, how to manage up, manage down, how to manage stakeholders, how to communicate better, present better, so on and so forth, right? But no one was teaching really supply chain guys that if you are a good category manager, it's all about your soft skills actually than your understanding how the category management is done, which is finding the supplier, understanding the spec, and identify risk. Okay, you can do that, but to make a great category manager, you have to have a great soft skills. But now what's happening from 2020, which in the technology, is the emerging technologies are coming. A lot of buzzwords are flying around, which you have been using since the call has started. AI, machine learning, IoT, 3D printing, blockchain, etc., etc. So what I found is organization really don't know where to start. Really, I mean, and if you really understand the technology and its real use cases, you will realize that each technology have a specific use case in a specific segment of supply chain. Let me substantiate. If you're looking to improve transparency of country of origin, right? Okay, and you see what technology is available. You're not going to use cloud or 3D printing because no use case. A good use case is blockchain. When we talk about improving visibility in supply chain, improving velocity, improving reducing variability, i.e., make your supply chain more agile, then cloud is probably the best technology you want to learn. You know how to use your cloud technology to integrate upstream and downstream, and create an application which I call a supply chain digitalization, more or less. So what we trying to do at Scmdojo is trying to send this message that if you want to be a good supply chain people, you supply chain competencies alone, which is let's call it a certification from MX, MSIPs or Apex, won't be sufficient. You have to improve the people skills and you have to improve the technology know-how.
Yeah. I have studied supply chain way back, and I have been to also IMD Business School, and that's more on the people skill side. So that's executive level. But I totally agree that on the technology know-how, there's a whole gap to educate people on that. Maybe
Actually, I have a question, quick question to you, because I see your supply chain maps, right? It's
yeah.
very interesting. And in supply chain maps, you do a very good job in you taking a typical part of it to match it with the startup and match with the specific technology,
Yeah.
right? I like to hear your insight on that part, right? How you actually think about matching the startup with the right technology with the right segment of supply chain.
Well, yeah, two things. I started out to create the IT supply map, and we positioned supply chain software vendors in Europe. Established one. In a similar way that Gartner has been doing, but I created one supply map with ERP, WMS, SNOP, TMS, and you name it. So those are established vendors, and all based on their implementations in Europe. We have actually a lot of figures about it, so that there's a whole science behind it, and then how to create this super map. It looks like the super map of Paris or London, whatever. So later on, since 2018, I created a maturity matrix of supply chain startups and scale-ups, and I defined 10 categories. So basically, and I know I've analyzed over 250 supply chain startups in Europe alone. So basically, you see some great new talents, founders who are very good at AI and understand supply chain. Most of them are coming from supply chain and they know how to apply it. So basically, in the startup world, you see the people who know technology. They are coming from supply chain. They have their technology, and basically they create this startup, and then they are growing into scale-ups. And by the way, Armenian is also attached to Lagrange.AI, so he can maybe comment on that. So basically, you see the startups and scale-ups coming from the area with a technology, background, technology brain, technology mind, how to apply blockchain and supply chain, IoT, how do you do AI for machine learning in the last mile. So I agree with this slide. You see the startups are coming from the left, and hopefully they have a supply chain experience and then know how to apply it and then solve real life problems, not just applying AI for AI's sake, but solving real problems. Is that answering your question?
Yeah, very well, very well. So I just want
Okay.
to substantiate what you're doing, basically.
Yeah, but maybe you can also address what you are doing. What are you delivering, and then we come to the part how videos and online courses are, being used.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've done a survey with because being an influencer and the blogger and the content creator supply chain, we got a lot of following, and we did a survey and we find out what is the real problem with the supply chain learning itself. And what we find out that I think out of 900 people replied to our survey, 70% think the supply chain and knowledge is expensive, right?
Mhm.
Because even if you want to do a certification of CSCP, just a course content and the exam is $3,600. And if you are in, let's call it the countries which you have in your previous slides, if you're in India or in Latin America or Pakistan, Bangladesh, people don't have that much kind of money, but they want to learn supply chain, right?
Mhm.
So one is the cost factor. Second would be accessibility of the content, right? So when we talk about the content, if you're good in googling, you can almost find the full curriculum supply chain, but that is not enough. People also want to know about what are the best practices, right? What are the tools available, right? So what we have done is we have created almost the whole curriculum of supply chain, which you could find in any masters. In fact, our curriculum covers all the three circles which I had above, right, in the previous slide. It covers all the technical competencies. It has a lot of course, courses we created on supply chain technology, and we have a courses on soft skills, which is presentation, project management, communication, leadership, so on and so forth. Let me give you example of a course which is almost done based on people have asked. We're talking about supply chain digitalization, great, but now the leaders in supply chain saying, or the professional is, we can't sell our business case. We can't get the ROI. So we have a course from an expert called Dicey. She's a supply chain tech consultant, and in this course she's teaching people how to create a business case for your technology project, right? So you can get an approval from your bosses and get the money to implement it, because any software which we buy from your software map has to pay the money. So we have almost created 41 hours of learning courses. We have 200 lessons, and every month we are growing, which I think I showed you the number in the next slide if you probably want to move it there, right? So that is available, and what we have also made it available is the best practices, like how to do inventory management, how to improve warehouse, how to do manage excess and obsolete. Because given I work for very different verticals, people will say every vertical have a different supply chain, and I kind of agree that healthcare and aerospace is different from electrical. But how you manage inventory, how you do category management, how you do negotiate, same. So we have created a best practices is like a knowledge library. You can use it, customize it, all good. Now we are only 19, 18 months old startup, self-funded, right? If you want to call it. And every month we are seeing people, 500 people subscribing to us. We got 5657 members. We got 391 paying members, which is a good number. And we are growing, and we have a very simple membership, which is a testament to there is a need in the market. There was a problem, and we've been trying to address this problem predominantly through the digital content, which is very much driven through the videos we produce, right? And we can produce a very, very high quality videos, probably better than LinkedIn. I mean, that's my claim is, people have to judge that,
Yeah.
right? And the lot of digital content we produce.
I mean, looking at these figures, I mean, what do you think about this, 19-month-old startup creating this kind of number of videos and this kind of numbers?
No, well, looks definitely impressive. What I would say in general is this way. There are three key enablers: people, process, and technology. And we can, since we are just funneled in supply chain, we are talking, I want to make it very specific here. But these numbers, the percentage that I see holds. 70% of attention should be on the people, onboarding and upskilling. And then 20% should be at the streamlining the process, and 10% for the tech. So whatever we talk here on the tech side, it's effective, and there are different solutions that are good. But then it's really on the 70% of their company's strategy or individual's strategy on learning. You see my
You know,
point?
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
we are
yeah.
on the supply side here.
Yeah. But I was wondering, Mudasir, because I think that your courses are excellent for onboarding new people.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Exactly.
And we have a recent request which is interesting, right? Let me tell you. There is, I'm not going to name this, two different procurement startup. I think one of them you probably know already. They come back with the issue, but they have a business issue. And the business issue is they can sell their subscription and they can sell it at a good price. But the customers are not engaging, therefore they're not subscribing for the next year. They are not renewing the license, right? And they come to see me, okay, can you help us out? When we did some root cause analysis and dig deep as a qualitative research, what we identified is actually once you sell the subscription of a software and people get excited and one or two people use, but then they don't use it because they are too busy in firefighting, because people love to firefight in supply chain. And to re-engage with them, you have to continue the training of the software, right? You have to continue the reminder, the benefits, and they come to ask us, can you help us out in producing a content? And we are absolutely doing that, right? So we are co-producing and co-branding content with them.
And here, as
Now,
you see here, you can see what are the most watched videos and
yeah,
which one has the most likes. So you come to the stage where you can recommend certain videos for certain
yeah,
people.
absolutely, right. So we're building the recommendation engine that based on the self-assessment and based on your interest, you will see the next video. Our YouTube channel right now, as you can see, 20K plus subscribers. I think is after SIPs and after one more person, we are third biggest. Have a community, and our videos, supply chain planning, how to. You can see all the videos. Like what is a career choice, how to prepare for interviews. This is all designed helping supply chain professional to improve their job, improve their processes, and eventually help the business to do better, right? So it's we are very clear on what kind of content we want to produce. We are not creating TikTok dancing videos. We know that, right? So we just want to focus on education and a bit of entertainment, if possible, where possible. And we are very fortunate enough that we are getting a good support from community.
Yeah, but this is over 50,000 views on a video on supply chain planning. That's marvelous, and I have some videos produced, like I mentioned, about a webinar about ChatGPT changing supply chain planning. I think 3,000 views, but over 50,000 views. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and it's good. Particular thing about this slide, about learning analytics, the middle part. Can you tell me about how you gonna change your learning courses applying recommendations?
Absolutely. I think this is very much one of the slide Dr. Amin presented earlier, right? Is the learning analytics in terms of, so the request come from the one of the customer. What he said is, okay, great, your platform is great, I like it, but I don't want to give access to all the content to all my team. I want to build their competency progressively. I want to assign them a content, I want to send them the courses, I want to see they're doing it or not. And I want to know who's completing it first, who's completing it on time. What I also want to know is who's passing the quiz first time around and who is cheating, right? So he come back with and say, can you do a bit of gamification, a bit of leaderboard, produce some kind of more interactive badges so I can see who's doing what, right? So we have literally taken all the feedback from our client, right? We studied who else is doing it like this, and we created that. So here, as a manager or leader, you will get a feedback that, if you assign the course of, for example, we have recently designed a course on supply chain network design through our friends Ames, right? That if you assign to somebody, if this person have done it on time or not, did they pass, what is their engagement, what is their focus, have they achieved the learning competencies we want them to do, right? And as far as I know, and according to my research, and Martin, you study supply chain and tech space a lot, I don't know any other software or any other platform who's doing that.
Well, maybe to my part, we created a knowledge base. Basically from left to right, you have data, and out of data you create information. Out of this information, you create knowledge, and then you have causality, correlation and causality, and then you get insight. That's your experience, and out of this experience, the best path, and then you get this wisdom. So that's basically how we came up with our new platform we are launching this month called SCM Wisdom. So basically, I get a lot of questions from executives from all kind of levels, but especially from executives, and I ask them, do you know how engaged your supply chain colleagues are? Because a lot of supply chain people are leaving the company, a lot of burnouts. So basically, are they engaged? Are they still thrilled? And last few years, have been very hard for supply chain professionals. So I get the question, no, we don't know if they are engaged. We don't know what keeps them busy at night. Not enough, So basically, engagement question is unanswered. Do we know individually if your people are engaged? So basically what we've done, we have created this knowledge base of supply chain movement. So we created supply chain movement in 2010, and we created a lot of articles, quarterly magazines, online. So basically 80% of the content we created is not available online. So ChatGPT cannot find it. So we have a huge content database, but it's totally different. We don't want to tag it. So what we've done, we made a platform where you have access to this content all through the last decades. And basically, we see four major purposes of using content. And this content is for, it's practical, a lot of cases, but it's digestible. It's not like very academic or something. It's for the professionals and practitioners. So we have seen, and we've done some studies with Mars and Lego, and we have done some interviews. You see four areas how you can use supply chain knowledge for onboarding of new people, for developing talents, so to broaden their scope. So the logistic manager should be supply chain director in a few years' times. So he or she should be broadening his or her scope. talking about strategy, about digitalization, sustainability, soft skills, and so forth and so on. Sharing knowledge. How do you know that all your people are on the same page and have the right knowledge about something? And finally, identifying company trends. Do you know if you are engaged with your company? So basically, this is how it looks like. So basically, our simple steps. When you go into our SCM knowledge bank called SCM Wisdom, first you go online, and then you will be asked which companies you would like to follow, which topics you would like to follow. So you create your personal profile. And the next step is, on the left-hand side, you already get some recommendations from articles, just like in Netflix. So these are the articles suited for your profile on the left-hand side. So you can start reading. And as you see, these articles are bite-sized, not long articles, very practical, very engaging, a lot of insights. And I got feedback also from Mars, for example, great user interface. A lot of the times internally we are Googling a lot. We cannot find it. Basically, we created this tool and we are using the similar technology OpenAI is using for ChatGPT with scraping and recommendations. And we have tweaked a lot with recommendations. So we got some feedback from Lego, etc., that our recommendations should be better. So the latest article should be prioritized higher than the oldest one, and so forth, so on. Very basic stuff, but these are the stuff Disney Plus and Netflix is also encountering. So basically, on the left-hand side, you see already recommendations based on your profile and your preferences. Then on the right-hand side, you type in a word you're looking for, small prompt, but basically you type in SNOP, cases, or whatever, and then you get some results. Then you get these articles and you can read it, and then you get a lot of other recommendations. The fun part is if you are onboarding demand planners, this demand planner will get some articles other demand planners have already been reading and also liking this stuff. So, you can get this colleagues up to speed. So that's for the onboarding part. You get a lot of insights. But also when you want to educate talents about strategy, digitalization, culture, etc., all kind of content, it's in there. And you can find it on the fly. So this is a very quick engine. And then you get your recommendations. So that's for the talent development. But also for innovation, we have seen some applications and tests being done. But the fun part is, and then I get to your point, Mudassir, there are also kind of Google Analytics layer on top of that. You can see who's reading what. You can do it anonymously, or you can do it by name. Who is read most. You can even see what are they looking for. Are they finding the right answers, etc. So basically, you have an overview, a dashboard of how is supply chain knowledge being used, who's reading what, and in a similar way, who has finalized reading an article, etc. So basically, this dashboard is very powerful for the supply chain manager or executive to see, what are the topics at hand? Is diversity a topic or not? Have they read enough about this? So this is the final part. And we tested it with some multinationals together with some supply chain students, and they loved it. Some of them have read so much that the engine was stuck. They couldn't get any recommendations, so we have to tweak the algorithm again. So basically, what the learning is, define a goal, how to use knowledge management as such. How do you use SCM Wisdom as a tool? How do you work with it? And that's the thing, they come up with an idea. How do you do innovation? So basically what they come up with, in the first week or week 0, the manager will have an assignment to, say, 10 talents. In 4 weeks' time, I want to have a pitch from your side. Which supply chain startup could help us to cover up a gap in our processes? So that's the assignment for the supply chain manager in week 0. In week 1, these talents will read one article per day, and an article is, say, 3 to 5 minutes. So that's not so much. And then so week 1 should be focused on strategy with these kind of short words or scenarios outside in. Second week could be on strategy, and they read 5 articles about strategy. and the last week in week 3, they are reading 5 articles about startups. And we have found out that after 3 weeks, just 15 articles, 15, they could come up with a pitch to the manager, totally different kind of pitches about startups. And we have all this kind of information inside our knowledge base. Which startup could help about sustainability, about blockchain, or whatever that is useful for this particular company. So that's the idea we are pitching right now and have been testing. So basically, we have to teach companies how to use supply chain knowledge, how to use it for what purpose. So that's what we are seeing. So basically, we have seen 3 applications from my side: SCM Wisdom, with Mudassir with the videos, and with Amin also from EPFL, but also from what he has been doing with Carlos. So first, Amin, what do you think about how to apply, looking at my tool, how to apply such a tool internally within companies?
Look, definitely all of them are very valid and covering the specific needs of the clients. Depends on the user what they are using. Like for example, on the media and the organization, if it is large organization, of course, onboarding and upskilling is an issue, and then making everybody. The point is, we can go for the metaphor earlier. We talked about it. We can go for the metaphor of tennis players. It's not a matter of having one tennis player in supply chain. It's much more important to have a football team with different skill set and with different, let's say, way of seeing the problem. So then training them on different, keeping the training, and then training them on different areas so that you have enough, let's say, talent plus enough supply line of the talent for the corporate and company. And all of the tools are valid. Depends on what the company would like, how far they want to go, and how they want to have for the speed and the scale that they're facing in their market.
Yeah, the funny point is, about the goal of all this, but also looking at economics. Mudassir was saying, what traditional courses are costing and what online courses are costing. I read a statistic that was on Statista from based on this year, based on over 100,000 courses. The average online course price is $137. So that's the average cost of a course. We are launching our SCM Wisdom for $10 per person per month. So you can go in and then you go out. So that's what we are doing.
Subscription model.
Yeah, subscription model. And as we see now, if you have a 4-week course, 1 month, 10 people, it's 100 euros. So it's quite easy and cheap to arrange it. But in the end, you want to have a subscription-based model as such, and you want to have recurrent engagement. In our model, hopefully people are so happy with this kind of tool, with this content we are providing, that they want to have it available online. And then my hope would be that based on what we can see behind, say if we have 1,000 or 10,000 users, we can see what is trending. We have, like the Google supply chain Google, we can see behind the scene what is real trending based on figures, based on numbers. So what do you think, Mudassir, about the pricing and what you get out of it? Are you also trying, maybe planning to come up with what is the most favorite course, and that you can have a monthly online overview of what people are studying in supply chain?
No, I think pricing for me is a no-brainer, and I think you should rather than I know we have been talking about SCM business for some time now, and the engine you have built, I think, will add a lot of value to the big businesses as well. If I take example of Eaton, it's like 100,000 people, 5,000 supply chain people, right? And they want to pretty much standardize their local information, right? They've created a lot of procedures and playbooks. So if you combine their local knowledge or their business knowledge with what you have built and come up with the recommendation engine, I think is great. And if you include our courses and our best practices in the same engine, I think you got the best learning product ever. I know I'm overselling, but that's what I believe.
So basically what we've built, we can scrape any PDF. So that's on Word.
Yeah.
We don't have videos in it. So that's on, we can scrape any PDF. So we can even scrape a 60-page PwC report. Very interesting, but people, not all the people are reading 60 pages. We can scrape it and cut it down into bite-sized pieces of 3-5 minutes. So basically then you read the heart of it, and then about blockchain or whatever, and then you read the next chapter or the previous chapter, and so you will read and digest this kind of reports and all related to this. I see we are on the hour. I have some questions. A lot of questions come from the chat, but so basically we are here after this. So right after this, we'll be sitting down in the virtual lounge. So, if you want to join us at table 1. Amin, Mudasir, and myself will be joining, and we'll have a conversation among each other. But, please join us. Next to this, on the left-hand side, you see the link to the SCM Wisdom. It's just 10 euros per month per person. Just try it for 1 month, and I'm totally convinced you want to have it more than just 1 month. In the middle, you see on one hand side, the connected plan. That's the masterclass video. Actually, 3 videos with a lot of animation done by Amin and also with Professor Carlos Cardon. And on the lower side, you see Lagrange.AI. That's the tool of the startup with Amin involved with how to use a digital twin. Great tool, and I hope to see more of it. And as you can see, it's already animated, but in real life, it's even more impressive. And on the right-hand side, you see one of the courses Mudasir has been doing with the video himself. It's about supply chain digitalization. It's a great one. So there's a lot of content in here. So as you see, we are on supply chain learning, and it will evolve. And hopefully we can integrate it with my text-based and Mudasir's video-based learning. We should integrate it with the platform, and also on the EPFL and the higher education with IMD. We should also see how we can create masterclasses for executives. And how to connect all this. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did, because it's an exciting topic. It's I think that this supply chain learning will differentiate the companies in the future. So I think that knowledge is the new oil for the future, and we know how to use it. We as professionals, but we're also learning about this, and we see how these tools with ChatGPT and other tools can have a better effect. So, Amin, thank you for joining me.
Pleasure.
Mudasir, always great to have you, especially with your great audience and your enthusiasm and with your video. Thank you. And I would like to thank the audience for attending, and maybe you are rewatching the video, and hopefully you will join us right after this in the virtual lounge, and maybe we'll speak over there. Thanks for now, and see you later. See you next Wednesday or some other time, or maybe in the virtual lounge. Bye-bye.